Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For tonight's review, we are doing something special. A debate, you would say, between Connor and Zain. And they are going to be fighting about the Amazing Spiderman 2! The most polarizing superhero film of this summer. Was it good? Was it great? Or did it suck balls? We are going to find that out. I'm your host, Alex Weiss, and let's get ready to rumble! In this corner, on the defensive side of Amazing Spiderman 2, we have Connor!
I liked it.
On the offense, we have the person who thought it sucked balls, Zain!
I liked it.
It sucked.
It was good.
You would. You're an acoustics major.
And you're a film major.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean you're right.
We'll see about that.
Okay, on the count of three, go. 1, 2, 3.
It was good in your life!
You would think that.
Yes, I would, because it was good.
Why was it good?
Honestly, I really did like it. I mean, the plot had it moving enough. There was enough action in this that really did. And the action was good. The action was very good. And while the plot may not have been that great, it still was a good superhero movie. It was a good movie. I went and saw it and I loved it.
Alright, point for the action. Connor 1, Zain 0. Your move, Zain. Counter! Counter!
Okay. So, you think the action was good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, how about you tell me this? How come 85% of the movie was based on Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy's love relationship, and there was maybe 5% of action in this entire freaking movie. There was so much love interest that this movie was just so poorly executed while having a good balance of relationship and of action. So if you want to say action was good, yeah, it was good for maybe 5 minutes of the film. So, yeah.
Objection, there was more than 5 minutes of action in the film.
I concur with the moderator.
You
Choice
would.
moderator. May I?
Yes, you have the floor.
Alright, so, while I agree that a big part of the movie was the love life, I think that was an important thing to have in this movie. We knew one of the big things in the comics was, spoiler alert, the death of Gwen Stacy. So establishing how important of a relationship this was, because in the first one we were like, she's the love interest. That's her character. We were more focused on Spider-Man and what he was doing. But in this movie, we really get to see the relationship between her and Peter Parker. We get to see the history with her father, and we get to see like where she's going, their future plans. And we get to see all of this, which makes the ending so much more raw. So, I also disagree that not 85% of this movie was the relationship. There was a good deal more. For once, it was the exposition. And there was a good amount of action. And whenever there was an action part, it kept it moving until it could satisfyingly end it.
Okay, end of round 1. We have Connor in the lead with 1 point, but a very well executed counter by Zain, but no points were had. Alright, round 2. Let us talk about the villains.
Oh.
Zain, you have the floor.
Oh, where do I begin to school you on how bad they executed the villains in this movie? Okay, So, the main villain is Electro, as I would assume you know by now. Okay, so his origin story was basically he made the plans for the power plant. Okay, he fell into a tank of beetles. Okay, he got somehow turned into crust and he came back, fought Spider-Man once in Times Square, and then after that he kind of just was there.
Please elaborate, Zain.
I intend to. Electro in this movie, to me, I felt was very poorly executed because I honestly did not feel that he had enough background history or background explanation as to why he wanted to, like, all of a sudden they just, out of the nowhere, just kill everybody, take all the power for himself. Yeah, he's Electro, and he needs power. I get that. But what was it that drove him to the complete point where he would kill anybody if he could, just to get all the power for himself? And let's not stop there. Let's go on to the Green Goblin.
Thoughts with Electro, because I got a good counter.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes. Connor, you have the floor for
I
Electro.
completely disagree about Electro's backstory. We established very on in the character that he is crazy. Like, he has Spider-Man stuff everywhere from an event that happened not in his childhood, not like several months ago, but a single event that happened weeks before that made him just obsessed with Spider-Man. So we know this guy is crazy. And crazy people don't have justification for anything. There is one thing he does have justification for, his drive for power. Because he was that nerdy guy that got pushed around. He got that, like, shoved around, it's your birthday, we don't care, shoved around. And now that he has that ability to get power, now more in the physical sense than in the metaphorical sense, he is going to get that. So that drive to power leads him to do this. I don't think he's out to kill anyone. I don't think he's out to anything. But I do believe now it is his time to show power, to get that power, and to show everyone that he is powerful. And it's not, and he's the only way he knows how to show power isn't like Spider-Man does. It isn't like that cocky superhero kind of power, but as that stereotypical mean boss manager type deal that he dealt with at work. And I feel like that is his backstory. We don't need like a crazy backstory like he had a troubled childhood. We don't need
And time is up.
Okay.
Okay, back to you, Zain.
Yes, okay. I will agree with you on a few things. Yes, his ability to now consume power is the driving force. Okay, I can agree with that. At the same time, I will say though that Electro, I mean, other than just him, you know, wanting power, what is his real motivation for being kind of that darker man? Like, okay, yeah, he wants his power, but do you have to become evil just to get that?
I don't think it's about becoming evil or even being
because
darker.
Hey. Order in the court.
Sorry.
Well, but he kind of does, because at the beginning he starts out as this nice, charming guy who just comes to work every day like anybody else, but by the end of the movie...
Objection. Charming is... Take it very debatable. Yeah, in quotations.
But at the same time, at the end of the movie, he wants to kill Spider-Man. So he becomes that darker man. So does getting power really require you to become evil, or could he have done it in a different way that does not involve him turning into a complete crazy man?
I think we have talked enough about Electro. Let's move on to the
Have a
other.
counter argument.
You already had
Quick
your
counter
you already had your counter argument for this round.
All right, very well.
Okay, all right. On Electro, point goes to Zain for being a. You have one word. Say one word for your counter argument.
What is this, Doctor Who?
Is that your final word?
No, that was multiple. That was a question. You gotta give me 1 second. I wasn't expecting one word. I was expecting
Yes.
sentences
Yes.
of beauty.
Yes.
Can it be no?
Is
No.
that your final word?
No, it's not my final. No. Final word. Crazy.
That is your final word?
Yes.
Okay. Go on to the Green Goblin.
You can start with
All
Connor.
right, Connor.
Alright, Green Goblin. I'm gonna be real. I never read the comics. I'm only familiar with the movies that came out. So seeing the Green Goblin come out was more of a callback to the Green Goblin from Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. Now, I think that the character was very well established and very well developed because we saw him instantly, backstory, out the wazoo. We see his relationship with Peter, and we see that relationship. We see him slowly evolve as a villain, and not where Electro, it was like almost like we only got so much of his original persona, and then his villain. I feel like it was the opposite with the Green Goblin, because we got so much of who he was, and then we see him again go crazy. And I mean, that's the Green Goblin. He is meant to go crazy. And so that kind of that kind of establishment leads him to be such a well-developed character. And I think that what balances out the villains in this movie is because we have one villain off the bat, but we have another one developing in the shadows, leading up to that final battle where not only are we facing Electro, but we're facing the Green Goblin.
All right. Here is your counter-argument, Zain.
Yes, we established his background. Okay, I can agree with that. However, in the plot of this movie, if there even is a plot in this movie,
That will be our next topic.
Next round.
anyways, the way they introduced the Green Goblin, yes, it is a good way. Him injecting him with some spider venom. But the way they utilized Green Goblin was kind of like, okay, we've shown Electro. Let's just throw in Green Goblin at the very end and have him be there for 3 minutes. Really? If you want to talk about villain progression, you need to have a progression that goes all the way through the movie and that makes sense with the plot. The way they put Green Goblin in was really more like a horseshoe into the movie. It's like, okay, you know, we've touched on one villain, we've touched on another one. Why don't we just throw in one more for a final battle and have it only last about 2 minutes long? So really, yeah, maybe you guys' background, maybe you got how he became the Green Goblin, but the way they utilized him in the movie was, it could have been a whole lot better because he could have had a bigger story arc, mainly as the Green Goblin, than he was as Harry Osborn throughout the movie. So if you want to say he was expressed better, no, he wasn't, because he was basically just thrown in at the end just to give the movie more minutes.
All right. That concludes round.
Whoa! He got a second argument for Electro. I feel like I deserve a second argument
Okay.
for Green Goblin.
An actual argument, not a word.
Thank you. While I really do agree that Green Goblin was almost thrown in at the end, that the villain itself really does deserve his own story arc, but I believe that he wasn't just thrown in because we had such an establishment of who he was. And saying that who you are versus your villain are two separate people is not true. Because they are one and the same. The villain is the darker part of within all of us. That is where the villain comes from. So when you are the villain, that is your darkness coming out. And we see that darkness rise from within him. And also, the big thing I feel like with this movie is that it's leading into the next one. I mean, we had the big tease with the Sinister Six. But now we're also like, he's still alive. We even got like the post-climax scene where he is in the insane asylum. And I feel like we are going to get that Green Goblin arc. It's just that
2018 or 2016.
We got bigger things to worry about. Avengers 2 still has to happen. But the point is that...
Objection, we are not bringing up any other Marvel movies.
Fair point. Fair point. Acknowledged. But the idea is that I feel like the Green Goblin, while the villain itself wasn't given the time it needed, the character itself was, and I believe the argument that throwing him in isn't the correct argument. While throwing the villain's appearance in, the character and the inner part of his persona is not thrown in, and it was very established within Harry Oswald, growing from within.
Osborn, correction.
Osborn. I'm sorry, it's been...
This is not Doctor Who. Completely unrelated, audience. End of round 3 goes to...
It's only... Wait. It's only fair that he gets a word.
Okay, Zain. 1 word to describe, to counter, to annihilate Connor in this round.
Can I get 3 words?
No.
No,
you get
just one.
I got 1. You get
1. That is 3 words. 2 words.
That's not my final word.
That was multiple words.
So is that your final word?
Osborn.
Stop making fun of the... Is that your final word?
Yes.
Osborn. Okay. The winner of round 3 is... Connor! For justifying his position on... on the development of the Green Goblin and Harry Osborn, even and admitting that maybe he was thrown in to it. Okay, our final round, and then we will give you their final words so you can decide yourselves who won, will be the plot. Alright, now we will... Who we start with the last time?
Start with Connor.
Okay, we will start with Zain. Describe the plot.
Can you even describe the plot?
That is not a plot.
Exactly.
Describe the plot.
I will.
Has to
Well,
be
no, there's not just one. There are multiple plots in this movie. I will go into more further detail on that. So, plot 1. Spider-Man is saving the city from whatever happens to be the what's ever happening. That's one plot. And that's a plot that I feel, for the most part, was okay. It could have been improved. Another plot was Gwen and Peter's love relationship. That was a plot. Another plot was Electro's plot. And then another plot was Harry Osborn's plot. The reason this movie to me felt that...
Can I add in one more plot? Peter Parker's missing parents.
Yes, that is a very good one.
Yes. Okay, so yes. So, you got 5 different plot points happening within one plot. Now, usually in a movie, you try to stick with just one plot. This movie, they went all over the freaking board. They started out with the Spider-Man, and then they cut over to Peter Parker's parents. And then they cut back to Spider-Man, then they cut back to Gwen Stacy. And then they go back to Harry Osborn, and then they go back to Electro. The way that they have these different subplots in the film just makes it unorganized. In a organized film, or a film that has a good plot structure, you do not have multiple plots within one plot. You have one main plot, and you maybe have maybe 1 or 2 subplots. But besides that, you do not incorporate 5 different freaking plots within one movie. You need to have one movie with one overall plot, which should be Spider-Man taking on Electro and any of the other villains. Not Spider-Man taking on Electro, Goblin, Rhino.
30 seconds.
And then having Gwen Stacy, Harry, and all them on the side. You need to have just Spider-Man and have one subplot, maybe his parents on the side. But other than that, it's just disorganized.
Time is up on Zain. Now to Connor.
Okay, first off, very good argument. I'm not going to lie. The plot in this is very chaotic, and I will agree with that. Couple things though. First, Rhino, had he actually been significant in this movie, we would have talked about him in the villains. But he wasn't that significant. He was just kind of there.
Very good point, Connor.
Second, the plot.
No point though.
That's fine. The plot of Spider-Man having to do something with the city does not exist. That plot comes from everyone else's plot. Now let me elaborate on that. In life, we are never just focused on one plot. I mean, the idea that, I'm going to use myself as an example, that my plot is I'm leading up to when I graduate college and getting my job will be my climax, and then I'm going to, or something like that. But I'm not. I'm establishing a Quidditch team. I'm doing this extracurricularly. I'm doing work. I'm working with my family. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm doing all this stuff. And that kind of chaotic mischief is what creates life. And so this movie is attempting to do that. We are centered on Spider-Man, who parents are gone. And that is a big, big part of his personality. That is huge. He has a love life going on, which is another big part of his life. He has the responsibility to serve his city, which involves the plots of the villains taking over the city. And while those can be argued to be separate plots, those are important to develop the villains, the evil. And that's where this kind of pseudo-realistic superhero movie comes from, is that we have the protagonist rising up to take on the antagonist that really could just be the problems in all our lives. And so the idea that the protagonist is rising up against this is what attracts us to this movie. But the realistic component of having so much going on and only being able to focus on one or the other creates the plot that is our lives. And that is my argument on the plot.
Okay, would you like to respond, Zain?
I would. So, you do a lot in life, right? So, if we were to film you doing all your different things in life, and you put it into a movie, would there be any order at all?
You may answer.
Answer me. Would there be
calm.
Hold on. Would there be a strict order of events?
Theoretically, I will have to say no. Then again, I'm not writing my life into a script. I'm not a script writer.
But, as you said...
You cannot use that as a defense.
Very well.
But, as you said...
You are an acoustics major.
Understand.
But, as you said, these are different parts of your life. Well, the same thing can be said for that, of the Amazing Spiderman 2. Maybe, yeah, he has a love life. He has his parents being dead. And he has villains. Yes, okay, that's true. But you know what? With those together into one straight progression of a plot, that makes it way too busy and way too complex. Yes, you can have it complex, but it has to make sense structurally. If it does not make sense structurally, then audience members are thrown off and they just lose interest. So yeah, maybe you have different parts of your life, but you do not need to have every one of them in a film.
Alright, that is it for Zain. Connor, you have one word to counter him.
Relation.
Alright, that is his final word. Okay, round 4?
Wait, who gets that point?
4. Yeah, round 4 is ended with someone getting the point, and that someone is Zain.
Yes.
For even though Connor was bringing up the point that life, you have so many other things going on, movies are not life, they were escapism, and this escapism does not make any sense. So the point goes to Zain for portraying life as a cluttered mess on film, as in The Amazing Spiderman 2. Okay.
You sound a little biased, Connor.
What? I don't know about this bias. What are you talking about? He did not give me $5 before this review.
I told you something about that.
We will be back for this final word. Okay, everyone, we are back for the final word. Okay, since we just started with Zain, right?
We started with Zain last time.
Zain. All right, for the final word, we will start with Connor.
All right, final word.
Yes, final word.
All right, so I feel like this movie is just what we need to see. We need to see something that is action, something that makes us seem superhuman, something that is superhuman and just action and riveting. We need something that shows relationships, to see that everyone has an issue finding that special person in our life, and we need to see that someone, even Spider-Man, has that problem. We need to see the darkness in the world. We want to see how the darkness can rise up, and we want to see the good rise up against it. We want to see how, even though the odds are against us, we can find out who we are. And who we are isn't just who our parents were, or who our girlfriend is, or who the villains we may have. Who we are is all of that together making us one. And that is what this Spider-Man movie is. It isn't about Spider-Man's adventure in New York City 2014. This is about Spider-Man finding out who he is.
All right, now you have your final word, Zain.
Yes, thank you. As much as I would like to agree with Connor, I have to strongly oppose that.
Do you?
Because my final word is this. Yes, the Spider-Man movie does interpret that we have many points in life. I will agree with that. However, if you were to portray this in a Spider-Man movie, you need to have it work so that it actually makes sense within the world. The world that they have established for Spider-Man, I feel, does not need these points in one movie. They need to establish it over time. And I mean, as far as for like the villains go, that would be among the things that they need to expand on as well. Make a better flow of their plot and their arc. Because their arcs, in my opinion, were very flat in this movie and were not very well created. So, if you want a movie with action and you want a movie with, you know, some love, Spider-Man is not the movie for that. Spider-Man is mainly the movie where you can join Peter Parker and you can go see what he sees through his eyes when he's around New York. But you do not want to go to a Spider-Man movie and have a love fest the entire time. That is not why you go to a Spider-Man movie, and that is not the reason that this movie is good. Or, well, it is, no, it's not the reason it's good, because the reason it is good, maybe, is because there's a few good actors in it and they did a decent job.
The acting was good.
So, you know, this is not a love story, this is a Spider-Man movie. If you want a love story, do something else with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. But do not do it in a Spider-Man movie. That is not the place for it. That's my final word.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Was The Amazing Spider-Man 2 a good representation of young life, or was it like life and just a complete mess? Or did Sony make a better Spider-Man sequel 10 years ago? Think about that. Okay,
Better than Spider-Man 3.
maybe point to Connor. But not really, because we were talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Join us next time for whatever we are going to be debating next. I am Alex Weiss, your moderator.
I'm Connor McCluskey.
And I'm Zain Wyk.
We will...
Good game, Zain.
Yeah, shake hands, gentlemen. Say, shake hands.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all, folks. Bye. Subscribe. Bye.
Bye.